Hello, everybody. Welcome to this second episode of Double Antidote. Welcome, Christopher.
Nice to be back.
Nice to be back. We left so many things the last time that I wanted to ask you, but today, talking about win the book, we're gonna be get in the. We said in Spanish, entrar en materia, and that's I don't know how to translate that in English, but it's like let's go to the body of the book because we was talking about why the book,
Right.
who for who,
Mhm.
you know, giving some examples. Well, that was very good first episode. So we suggest to the people, if you didn't see the last one, go and see the first one so you're gonna have a better idea and to keep tracking this because
Sure.
this is going to be super interesting. Now we're going to talk about the first chapter of the book, Christopher.
Okay. Chapter 1.
Chapter one, and I'm gonna start with this over here. I got a question for you. In the opening lines of chapter 1,
Mhm.
you mentioned laying the groundwork for a campaign. Can you elaborate on what these groundwork in detail?
Well, that's a good question. So campaigns are not simple. They're typically complex. Even obviously, some are more complex than others, just depending on the size. Right.
Mhm.
A larger campaign is going to be more complex than a smaller campaign, but every campaign ultimately you have to lay the same sort of groundwork, and really where that comes into play before we get into any of the campaigning, before we get into any of the pre-campaign analysis and any of that stuff, we have to lay the groundwork of understanding how the U.S. government,
Mhm.
how that government works. So many candidates, they want to run for public office, but they don't know how the government is actually set up. They don't understand how their state government is actually set up. They don't know the difference between the upper house and the lower house. They don't know who the House of Representatives actually represents. They don't know who the Senate actually represents. They don't know why there is a Senate. They don't know any of those different things. They don't know the division of powers. They don't know any of these different things. And there's different rules. So if you think about campaigning, Eva, as a game, every game has rules.
Exactly.
Right. And so you would never play a game unless you knew the rules. Right.
Mm-hmm.
And so if we're going to play soccer, we need to know the rules of soccer. If we're going to play American football, we need to know the rules of the game. If we're going to play chess, we need to know the rules of chess. You can't use the rules of checkers when you play chess, right?
Exactly.
And so chapter 1 really goes over the specifics of what the rules of the game are, why the rules are that way, why government is set up the way that it is. And at the end of that, what you need to determine as a candidate or as someone that wants to be involved with the campaign, really what you need to determine is where do I fit? I need to run the right race. Part of the problem that the candidates have is that there might be good candidates,
Mm-hmm.
but they're running the wrong race,
Mm-hmm.
right?
Yeah.
They might be a
Yeah.
fantastic city council candidate, but they're running for Congress. Why? Or maybe they're
Or subestimate, vice versa. Like, hey, I'm running little things, but my potential is for go something bigger.
Absolutely. Or maybe you're running a school board race and you should be running a city council race, right? Maybe you want to run for Congress, but the first step to getting to Congress is maybe running for the state House of Representatives.
It's true.
Or maybe the state Senate. Maybe
It's true.
do a little bit smaller race. So many candidates are out there looking for the sexy races.
Mm-hmm.
I'm a congressional candidate, or I'm running for Senate, right? So ego play,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
It's like,
Yeah.
well, why don't you run for state house? Because that actually has more of an effect on your life than running for Congress will.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Right. And so that's what chapter 1 is really about, determining what the rules of the game are and making sure that we're running the right race at the right time.
Yep, it's true. And something that is very important is the language of the politics. what kind of language they use in the campaigns. Can you talk to us about it?
Yeah, there are certain things. So if I talk about elections,
Mm-hmm.
I use the word election,
Mm-hmm.
or I use the word cycle. So every one election cycle has 2 elections.
Mm-hmm.
Most candidates don't know that, or maybe they might know it, but they're not really aware of what that really entails.
And you explained that in the chapter number 1 about
absolutely. So in that example, so every election cycle has a primary election
mm-hmm.
and has a general election.
Mm-hmm.
And the primary comes first, and then the general election comes second. And every single state, all 50 states, have different rules regarding
exactly.
how those elections are run and the timing of the elections. You know, some campaigns, or some election cycles rather, are what are called short cycle elections,
mm-hmm.
to where you have a really long primary, and then you have a general election that's 90 days. And then you have others that have a short primary, and then you have a really long general election, right? And so understanding the rules of the game, when you have to have money, when you have to position your people, when you have to send mail, when you have to do all these different things,
mm-hmm.
all of that matters. We go over the fundamentals of all the basics of determining that in chapter 1, and really learning the language. And that's just one example. If I use the word upper house, if I say, hey, are you running for the upper house? Most candidates wouldn't know what that means. So what that means is, are you running for the state senate? If you're running an upper house race, you're running for the state senate. If you're running a lower house race, you're running for the House of Representatives, the state House of Representatives. The U.S. Congress has an upper house and a lower house, except they're called chambers, the upper chamber and lower chamber. So the upper chamber is the Senate, and the lower chamber is the House of Representatives, or Congress.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So
I want to talk to you about how lucky, how blessed is this country about, because you was talking about primary, right? And it was comes something in my mind about that happened in the country born in Bolivia.
mm-hmm.
So they never have primaries. So the very first time they have primaries, this was so, and please don't laugh, but if you have to, just, well, if you have to, you do it, okay?
I'll be kind.
Yeah, exactly, because this is ridiculous.
Nice
this is ridiculous what I'm going to tell to you. So the first time they've been primaries, oppositions, because in Bolivia doesn't exist the opposition. The only oppositor is in jail right now as a political prisoner. And this is the thing. And his vice president candidate too is in prison too. So the whatever is outside is functional, right? So this is the thing. Okay, it's coming the primaries. Perfect. So the primary was only one candidate per party.
Mm-hmm.
So there is like 150 parties per race.
Mm-hmm.
I'm kidding, probably 25, right? So, for example, the dictator Evo Morales was the only candidate for the primary for his party, and the other one, and the other party, opposition, and the other party, opposition, and the other party, opposition, right? Because there is only one from the left and 100 from the not from the left, because all are from the left, I believe. That's why the country sucked. But this is the thing: like there is one, the dictatorship or the authoritarian, and the other ones are opposition, but they believe they are from whatever, but moderate. I cannot even say they're hybrid. I don't know what they are. Okay. So one candidate for the primary. It's not like Evo Morales wants to have more.
Right.
But as a dictator, you can understand, because he's a dictator.
Sure.
But what about the opposition? Then they're playing the same game. I'm the oppositor candidate, and I'm gonna be the only one in this race for a primary. So there is no real primary, and everyone is running in the same thing. It's not like I separate. Your party has this. Your party has no. It's everybody in the same paper where you vote. What the hell they're doing? So, and this is the thing. It's not easy to make a poll, because that is exactly what it is. Who get more, whatever, because for who do you think who got more voters? That's a poll. It's easier. It's cheaper.
So in the U.S., it's a little bit different. Well, not entirely. Not as much,
really?
Not as much as you would think. So.
Oh, that's what you didn't laugh.
No, I mean the Joe Biden is trying to put his political opponent in jail. No different than Bolivia.
Who?
Joe Biden is trying to put Donald Trump in jail.
No. But they are two different. No. This is the thing. Primary. I'm talking about primary.
I am too. So in the United States,
he's not trying to go to the primary by himself with Kennedy, for example.
So,
just him. He's trying.
But that's at the presidential level. There are some states. So you have different types of primaries in the United States. You have what are called open primaries. You have,
and that's what you teach there.
Yes.
Excellent.
You have closed primaries. You have semi-closed primaries. So you have what are called top two primaries, or affectionately known as jungle primaries. I think there's only 4 states that has that. And then Alaska has a variation on that. So all 50 states, they all have different primary systems.
Yeah.
Right. So some are the same, some are a little bit different, but they're all 50 states are have their own power to do that.
Mm-hmm.
So let me give you an example. So in the state of Washington, which I've done a lot of work up there.
Mm-hmm.
You spent some time up there with me during the 2020 season. They have what's called a jungle primary, or top 2. So my client beat 34 challengers.
Uh-huh.
There were 34 challengers from all different parties.
And that's primary.
That was in the primary.
Okay.
But then in the general election, there was only 2.
Exactly.
Right. But not every state is that way. Some states allow independent candidates to be on the ballot, to where you have 3, sometimes 4 candidates.
Yeah.
Right. So chapter 1 goes through the specifics and even lists, as of the writing of the book, it lists the states and which states have which primary system. Because if you don't know that, then you don't have the fundamentals and the foundations of how to even structure your plan on how to run for public office. Right. So, and to make it even more confusing, mm-hmm. some of the primaries, some offices that you run for have different rules for their primaries.
Mm-hmm.
Right. Depending on whether you're at the state level, or you're at the federal level, or you're at the local level. Right. So the book goes over all of that.
Yeah. So I believe you don't understand what I tried to say.
Okay.
But we're not talking about Bolivia. We're talking about your book.
Right.
And thanks God you didn't understand what I said, because I believe it's not okay what happened in my country. They get advantage of the ignorance of the people. And there is for example, this is a primary.
Mm-hmm.
So over here is in the primary, in the same paper is the Republican, Independents, and Democrats.
Mm-hmm.
In the primary,
mm-hmm.
where the candidate is going to be exactly the same that want to run for presidency.
Right.
It's not like they're going to eliminate the other ones to just these 2 run in the end.
Right.
In the end, going to be the 3 again.
Right.
So it's cheaper for the people who pay, because it's not money from the state. It's not money from the state. It's not money from the government. It's money from the people that they're using to make all this. And I believe it's cheap to a poll. This is my favorite. This is my favorite. That's what I mean.
No,
so they made fake primaries, because it's not primaries. Primaries to pick what the candidate of your party you want to be.
Right.
You represent them from that race. Right. No, over there, no.
Right. But here in the U.S., it's a little different. It is.
Yeah. I believe it's a big difference.
Well, yeah, it is a big difference. But when you have multiple, when you have multiple candidates from the same party that are running, I understand the differences that you're getting at. Here in the States, it's a little bit different. We go over everything about that in the book. So
perfect. So let's go over here. Say, I got another question for you.
Okay.
What are some of the key obstacles that you identify in chapter 1 for candidates, and how can they be overcome?
So chapter 1, some of the obstacles of chapter 1 is the biggest one is just understanding the system. You have to understand how the system works and how the machine works and why it works the way that it does. Really have having a fundamental understanding of how your government works is important if you want to run for public office and serve in that government. You have to understand that. Chapter 1 goes over that and makes it very clear. So let me give you an example out of the chapter. So most people think, so here in the United States, again, we'll just talk about federal races because every state is different. So at the federal level, you have the House of Representatives, and people run for Congress.
Mm-hmm.
And then you have the U.S. Senate, and people run for the Senate.
Mm-hmm.
And on the ballot, the people vote for the candidate that they want to send to Congress,
Mm-hmm.
and they vote for the candidate that they want to send to the Senate.
Mm-hmm.
However, the senator does not represent the people. The senator represents the state.
Mm-hmm.
And the Congress member, the member of the House of Representatives, they represent the people.
Mm-hmm.
Every state is divided, or what's the words? It is apportioned, is divided up by population.
Mm-hmm.
And every U.S. Representative represents roughly about, not exact, but about the same number of people.
Mm-hmm.
In the U.S., in the United States Senate, there are 2 senators from every state, and only 2.
Yeah.
And no less than 2, unless somebody dies, right? And then there's a procedure to replace him, but there's always 2. States like Wyoming may only have, I believe Wyoming has 1 representative,
Mm-hmm.
right? But they have 2 senators. They only have 500,000 people in the state. A state like Florida has like 28 or 29 million people.
22.
22.
Well, now with all the immigrants, that with the
So-
7 millions of Biden, probably.
So let's say they have 25 million. They still only have two senators.
Yeah.
So senators represent states, representatives represent people. That is and the reason that is, and the people didn't used to elect U.S. senators. It used to be the legislatures of the states would appoint senators as like ambassadors
Mm-hmm.
from state governments to the federal government.
Yeah.
Well, that got changed in, I think, 1913 or 1917, one of the two. I think it's 1917 that it got changed. That a vote of the people now elected senators. And the reason that it changed is because legislatures couldn't decide on who to send for to the U.S. Senate, and so you ended up with like not enough senators, and so they changed it. They changed the rules. They actually changed the Constitution for it in 1917, and they passed a new amendment to change it. Why is that important for you to know? Well, because you need to know U.S. history if you're going to run to be part of the federal government. The division of powers. The Senate does not represent you at home, ladies and gentlemen. They represent your state. Your congressperson, that person does not represent your state. That person represents you, the people.
That's why when you have something to pass or whatever, they never say, hey, call your Congress, call your representative, text your representative. They don't say call your Senate.
Yeah. Well, it depends on what it is. If it's foreign policy,
okay, yeah,
then they call your senator.
Yeah, it's true.
Right.
It's true.
If it's
for example, the Senate is, for example, if Florida, going back to Florida, find a new oil, whatever, fountain of oil, petroleum, whatever.
Right.
And that is not something that the representative is gonna fix. It's the Senate, because it's gotta go a deal with the state.
But they both have a stake, but what they focus on is different.
Okay.
So the representatives will focus on one thing: how is this going to benefit
the people? Yeah, and the other
and
one is how
it's going to benefit the state and the nation.
Okay. Yeah. That's very important, because, as you said, people don't understand these kind of levels or grades or things, and sometimes we confuse when we want to claim. We claim to the wrong person, thinking like that is their duty, and then this person is not good. But hello, it's not his duty.
Right.
You have to call this person.
Right. If you're mad about the traffic problem in your state, why are you running for Congress? Like, you're not going to be able to fix your state's transportation problem. Go run for your state house. Go run for your state senate. Go run for governor. Go run for maybe Secretary of State, or Secretary of State wouldn't handle transportation, but go run for something like that so you can handle the things you're mad about. Don't run for Congress.
Or the things that they understand.
Absolutely.
Yeah, it's very true. So my next question over here in this segment is, you mentioned that acknowledge is power. Of course, power, right? Can you talk about the type of acknowledge you think is most critical for the candidate to succeed?
Public policy. You have to understand public policy. And I'm going to tell you why.
I'm going to take note of that.
Okay. Public policy. And I'm going to tell you why. Because when you're on the stump, when you're out campaigning, you're going to be asked questions about public policy. I don't give this example in the book, but I could have, but I didn't. But Sarah Palin, former governor from Alaska, was John McCain's vice presidential partner against Obama in 2008. And she was interviewed in the media, and she was asked a question. The question was this: how do you feel about the Bush Doctrine? Now, the Bush Doctrine is a set of public policy positions. Sarah Palin looked blankly back at the reporter. This is like ABC News, I believe. And she was like, did not know what she was talking about. Like, did not know what the reporter was asking about. Didn't know what the Bush Doctrine was. And so when you're out and you're campaigning and you get asked about public policy, so let me put it to you this way. You're mad about the traffic in the area. Okay. And when you're out campaigning, somebody's going to ask you, how are you going to fix the traffic? That's public policy. So you have to understand public policy. You have to understand how laws are passed, who needs to approve the budgets, how those budgets are structured, all of those different things. You just can't run because it's sexy and you think it's cool. Like that is the big problem with, we're going to change it. That happens
a lot with the candidates.
Oh, absolutely. The majority of candidates. Like, now you're starting to see why I tell people not to run for public office, because they're running for the wrong reasons. They just want a platform to complain. They don't want a platform to actually do things for the people and make the country better.
But for complaint, you can call, right?
Yeah. Get on Yelp and leave a bad review. I mean, if you really want to complain, then go complain, but don't run for public office. If you want to run for public office, the thing that you need to know is public policy.
Do you think
how do things work?
Do you think that's come because that person is so concerned about the problem, and somebody say, hey, but you know what, you gotta run because you got the encourage and to go and run and go and face it. But it's not a debate. This is about real working. It's not like it's a job.
Right.
It's the job. It's not like you do you know what I mean?
Absolutely. Yeah. And that's one of the things that I tell people is that if you want to run, I'm super excited for you. I really want you to run. I want you to do well. I'm going to help you win. But you have to know public policy. You have to know the job.
And I'm going to tell something over here publicly. Long time ago in Florida, when they said to me to run for Reps Day, the second time you said to me, no, you're not running. And I said, why? Because you don't know about public policy. That is exactly what you said. And now that you're talking about this, is what you said to me. Why are you going to run for something that you don't understand? And you said to me something, not even here, people who live here forever and have double of year of you know what is this. So you really have to be knowing and what you're gonna do. And I said, oh, okay. And in the end, I take it like as a Bolivian, I'm gonna be the first elected, yada yada. You want to be the first good one. You don't want people remind you, oh, the Bolivian, she didn't know nothing. I don't know why Bolivian American run for this. They don't know nothing about keeping your country and running your country. You don't want to have that kind of review after. But that you was very honest with me when you say it's because, and I said, why? It's because you don't understand public policy. And I remember that now that we're talking about this, and that's the word you use when you said to me, stop, this is not for you, or at least you have to prepare more.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I thought I was going to be one girlfriend down. I thought you were going to be mad and be like, leave. But no, it was the thing is that I didn't want you to get yourself into a situation that you could hurt yourself and hurt your reputation. Because once you're out there, you get embarrassed. It only takes one bad media occurrence.
I saw people trying to push too much. To be the candidate, no, they are already candidate, but to win, and they don't even know the national anthem.
Well, we both know, right?
Yeah,
exactly.
I don't want to say names, but that was so sad and so embarrassing that somebody have to. Actually, was the pledge.
It was the Pledge of Allegiance.
So somebody have to come and it's super short and come to get the microphone and finish, right? Because that was very embarrassing, and if because we come from our countries and because our father or whatever being a candidate or representing our country, we want to keep the legacy, but keep it doing your country, right? Don't make it ridiculous, because when one Hispanic look bad, everybody look bad.
So let me give you an example. So everybody knows who AOC is, right?
Oh my God, yeah.
Everybody knows who AOC is.
But no, everybody is like her.
She's super low IQ. And I would say that to her face. So I'm not saying anything behind her back. She's genuinely a low IQ individual.
Yeah.
She's an activist.
Yeah.
That's what she is. She's an activist and an actress.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. And she won an election. She was installed, won an election, ran a great marketing and sales campaign. Had the
lot of money since the people who made the casting for pick her.
Had the money behind it. And she doesn't know anything about public policy.
Yeah.
And that is completely apparent every time you see her sitting in Congress.
Mm-hmm.
And so when you say, why is America messed up? That's why.
And I'm going to tell...
It's not just, and it's not, let me finish, it's not just AOC. We have Republicans, conservatives.
Yeah.
That are and how I feel about that. The
person we were talking is actually a Republican. And when I've been... making campaign for Mr. Trump, his team, his political advisor said to me that stop talking about Trump because everybody knows that his candidate was Hillary Clinton. I said, what?
Oh yeah.
And in a meeting, I don't care if he get embarrassing, but I say, hey, we the Republican has to know. He was over there sitting down. I say, we have to know where our money is going, because over here, we're giving money to some candidate, and guess what? This candidate is giving the money to Hillary Clinton. I didn't have to say it.
In Oregon, the governor candidate, the Republican gubernatorial candidate, openly endorsed Hillary Clinton for president during the 2016.
Or in Florida, there is a guy who is hugging and kissing the front head to Debbie Wasserman.
Oh,
Debbie
absolutely.
Something.
Yeah. Yep.
The one of who represent the in Broward County.
Yeah, in Broward County.
So it's what is the business under the table here, right?
Yes,
so
exactly.
yeah, and well, this is as a part of the dynamic of talks about experience that we have, and people understand that we are really involved in this and seeing a lot of situations and a lot of.
Oh, I've got stories. I've got 27 years of stories.
Right?
Yeah.
Yep. So I get another question over here. How does chapter 1 set the stage for the strategies and insights provide in the rest of the book?
So if you don't understand the fundamentals of how government is and how government is set up and why, and you don't know any of those things, then you're going to run the wrong race, right? So chapter 1 basically gives you the foundational understanding about our government, how it is formed. I'm sorry, not how it is formed, but how it is set up, its structure, and it puts you into position to run the right race, right? So it doesn't make a difference if you run a fantastic race It's like climbing a ladder that's leaning against the wrong wall, right? So you're running against, you want to be up there, but you end up climbing a ladder leaning over here. Chapter 1 puts the ladder on the right wall, and it helps you to understand where you need to run in that structure. And then once you get into chapter 2, chapter 3, chapter 4, chapter 5, et cetera, then that unfolds a strong campaign to climb that ladder that is now leaning against the right wall.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Perfect. Now, this is a good one. I love this question because you're gonna give your super tips here.
My super tips.
Your super tips, your superpowers here.
Pressure.
Can you share some of the most important advice or lesson? And guess what? He's gonna do it for free, guys. For free, right? Because I'm telling you, you have to pay a lot of money when you contract to him, but this is for free for everybody over there. Can you share some of the most important advice or lesson you hope candidates will take away from the chapter number 1?
I think we've been talking about it. Run the right race. That is the biggest one. Run the right race. You are a mom at home, mad that your children are getting sexualized by their teachers. Run the right race. Don't run for Congress. Run for school board.
Grandmas too?
Grandmas, fathers, get involved. Get involved. I was my daughter's PTA president, right? I was involved in PTA for my kids. I was my daughter's soccer coach. I was involved. Get involved in your children's lives. If that's the thing that you're most upset about. If you're mad about, maybe you're a veteran like me, and you're mad about how the VA is treating vets, run for Congress. Run for U.S. Congress. Maybe you don't want to send young men and young women over to Ukraine to fight Russia in a war. Run for Congress, right? Maybe you're mad about. We need good
candidates.
Maybe you're mad about how your state is being run because it's terrible. There was a gentleman, in fact, he endorsed the book. His name is Lauren Culp, a good friend of mine. Small town law enforcement, small town police chief, town of 1,200, up in the middle of Nowhereville, Washington. And I mean, this is the kind of place that, like, you either have to be going there or you're really lost to get through his town. And he decided he was tired of his governor taking away and limiting people's constitutional rights. So he did two things. He wrote a book. The book ended up going viral. He ended up on Tucker Carlson. He ended up on a bunch of different things. And then he decided he was going to run for Congress. He decided he was going to run for governor because he wasn't worried about the national stuff. He was worried about the stuff in his own state, right? So running the right race, that is the big thing. Run the right race. You have to make sure that the things that you are upset about, the value that you believe you can bring to the table, you have to use those skills in the right way and in the right office. And chapter 1 really lays out for you and helps you to determine what office is going to be the best office for you to run for.
Which suit fit better?
Which suit fits better?
Yep.
That's exactly right.
And what's a tie and match with that?
That's exactly right.
Christopher, now we're going to go to the conclusion of this second podcast that we are doing together.
Okay.
And of course, the next one, we're going to go to the second chapter and like that until we finish the book. But before we finish, how does the content of chapter 1 reflect the broader political landscape and the challenge of conservative candidates may face?
So the broader political landscape, so there used to be a clear choice between Republicans and Democrats. They used to believe different things. Now they don't really believe different things. And something that I tell people all the time, clients, prospective clients, fellow people that are other consultants, different folks in talks that I give, is the Republican Party and the Democrat Party today, as they are today, are two sides to the same coin. They both believe in big government. They both believe in wars. They both believe in all these different things. Now, they just go about it differently. Understanding how and why our government was set up the way that it was, and understanding the history will help the reader to realize that our founders of this nation were small government people.
Mm-hmm.
And they had very libertarian leanings. They didn't want government involved in their life at all. That's why they fought a revolution over it. They didn't want the king in their life. Why would they want the government in their life? And now it's you have a group of people in the United States on both sides of the fence. Well, the government should do something about that. Why? Why should the government do something about that? The government should fix that. Why? It's never meant to fix it. It's never meant to do that. Why do we have a Department of Energy? Why do we have a Department of Education? Why do we have, there's a lot of departments, Department of Energy. Like, why do we have these departments? Why do we have the Department of Homeland Security? Why do we have the TSA? Why do we have all these different things that have been weaponized against the people? Why? Chapter 1 really shows you that the federal government was designed to be small. It's designed to fit into the area called Washington, D.C., and it's not to step outside of it. And when it does step outside of it, the Constitution, which I point to in the first chapter, the Constitution lays out the times when the U.S. government can step out of its box, and it's never against the American people. It's only in foreign issues. Right?
Exactly.
And so just getting back to that place where we get back to our roots, limited government, individual freedom and liberty. Why are we, and asking, having candidates say, why are we doing X, Y, and Z? Why?
Why?
Where does it say in this thing that we call the Constitution, the manual, where does it say that we can do that? Where does it say that we can dictate a top-down thing on education? It doesn't say that,
Mm-hmm.
right?
Mm-hmm.
But most people don't know the Department of Education was put together underneath Carter and signed into law by Reagan. The Department of Energy was created underneath Nixon, who's a Republican. So are Republicans going to continue to want to expand government so we can do something? You know who needs to do something, Eva, is us.
Yeah.
We need to do something. We got pollution problems. We need to do something. We've got education problems. Run for school board. Do something. That's where it should be handled. It shouldn't be handled in D.C.
Yeah, and I was giving you yesterday an example when we went to the supermarket about the farmers, the people who raise cows for meat, and ranchers. And he was talking something like that. Hey, before 1963 or 68, he said something like that. We put it this way, and actually he said that. Because they kill the cow, they sell the product, and they raise good cows because go to the community,
right?
And they have to sell something good for the people because it's their community,
sure,
their state,
and they'll go out of business if they're selling bad meat.
Exactly, yeah. They want the best for the people, and now they have to give the meat to the state, and the state probably put more supplements and this and color and making a modification of the meat to put and to last longer in the supermarket in the nice trays. And that's what he was saying. This has to go back when we give it the meat to the people. And actually now they talk about poor cows. Now they're before they was, and actually it's worse now because they kill so many cows with no reason.
Right.
When before you kill whatever you need for the community and whatever they need. For example, in North State as Las Vegas, there is no cow because it's not the same land like Texas, right? Or
Yeah.
other state than their cows.
Right.
So we understand, but gonna be the necessary to send over there to say, but from the producer to the people,
Mhm.
and of course, somebody need to come from the government or whatever. I don't know, from the state to see that the condition of cleaning is good. I got that.
That's a states' rights issue.
You-
That's not a federal issue.
It's not a federal. Okay,
Right.
exactly. But most they can touch that.
Right.
But then they do it, and he said, actually, now they talk about, oh my God, they're killing, and before was better,
Mhm.
you know. So
The federal government has no place in dictating how ranchers kill their cows or how they handle their cows.
but they're doing it.
But they are. But they have no. That's what I'm talking about. Is because people have expanded the role of the federal government,
Mhm.
right? Because well, there's a lot of different reasons, but that's a states' rights issue. In that example, like Oklahoma and Texas and those places where they raise cows, and all the different places they raise cows, states' rights issue.
Mhm.
Texas has the right to tell Texas ranchers how to handle their cattle.
Mhm.
They do, because it's the state.
And even he said the best meat that we cut, we're not even consuming.
Right.
Is somebody else consuming on a part of the world?
Right.
He said, and actually we're getting the war thing when we're producing for our people.
Right.
So
this is an example of people being elected that either don't understand or don't care, and ultimately, it comes back to the voters. If you don't know as a voter what the government should and should not do, and can and cannot do,
mm-hmm.
then you're just going to continue to send people to Washington, D.C. that are going to do the wrong things.
Bartenders over there and things like that, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. Christopher, last questions for today. Can you provide an example of a situation where the insight from chapter 1 could be practically applied in a campaign?
Oh, without a doubt. I every cycle I have candidates come to me that are, again, I know I've beat this drum this entire episode, but they're running the wrong race. You know, and I have one client now in Eastern Washington that wanted to run for one thing and then changed because she was going to end up running the wrong race. And I was like, no, you need to run this race. And so she changed. And that is the biggest thing, is alignment. You know, I don't know how many of you out there have ever had back problems. I have had back problems. Some of it is most of the time it's due to alignment issues. I was involved in a rear end collision car accident many years ago that really hurt my back. And I was at the chiropractor like every week for probably 2 or 3 months so I could get put into alignment. Once I got aligned properly, the pain went away, right? It's the same thing in politics. Once you're aligned properly with the right office, the right race, things are going to start to flow. Because if you don't set that up, and I'm going to give you a specific example of why this is so important and why I've been talking so much about this, kind of repeating myself in this podcast episode, is that when you're fundraising, and we're going to go over this in a future episode, hopefully. When you're fundraising, one of the first things that I'm going to ask you to do, if I was your guy, I was your GC, I would tell you, you need to make a list of 200 people, and the top 200 people, it's called your top 200 list. Okay. Top 200 people that you know. And you're going to make a phone call to those people. And that phone call is to ask for their support. But the first thing that you have to establish, which we'll talk about in chapter 2, is rationale and story. Rationale and story. Rationale. Does this make sense? Story. How did you come to the conclusion that you need to run for public office? Okay, so let's go to rationale. Just because you got promoted from the fries to the grill doesn't mean that you're qualified to run for governor. And there's nothing wrong. If you work in fast food, I think that's fantastic. It's great. But it doesn't necessarily mean that you're prepared to run for governor, right? So rationale, because you're going to make that call. Hey, Eva, Chris Gergen, just wanted to reach out. It's been a while since we've talked. How are you doing? Blah, blah, blah. Hey, listen, I've got some big news that I'm sharing only with close friends and family. Do you have a moment to talk? Yes, Chris, I've got some time to talk. Great. Hey, listen, I've decided after a lot of prayer with myself and my wife, which is you, but not in this example, that I've decided that the time is now for me to run for Congress. What do you think about that? So the first thing going through her head is rationale and story. She's not saying it, but that is our initial response. Rationale and story. All right. Well, Chris, what do I know about Chris? All right. Yeah, I guess that does make sense. And then story. Well, I guess, he and his wife prayed about it and, blah, blah, blah. Maybe I've given some more details, obviously. And then you're going to be like, yeah, that does make sense. I think that's really awesome. Well, great. And then boom, I pivot into my ask for her to give me some money to fund my campaign. Right. But if you're not aligned properly and you're running a race where the rationale isn't there, the story isn't there, you're never going to get out of phase one, phase two. You're going to lose like that. Yeah. You'll never gain traction. You're going to fall into what's called the pit of despair, where campaigns go to die. Yeah. Which is where my presidential candidates, preferred presidential candidates campaign is headed right now. It's into the pit of despair, which we'll talk about in another episode.
In another episode in 2024.
In 2024, right? Exactly.
Let's see what's happened. Yeah. There is a lot of moons coming, until we see what's going on in this country. And I hope the people put attention in all this, what Chistopher is saying, because it's very important. It's very important. We need good people, and I'm never going to tell you to repeat this. We need good people representing us as a Senate, as a representative, as a Congress, as a
school board, water board, city council, county commission, all those different things.
And especially now that the things are changing here, I hope that stop changing, taking to a new ways to be, new normality or things like that, because sometimes we don't understand how people get to level of influence, political influence. But sadly, they bring at purpose people, they move people, they make a lot of cheatings in the little towns where you don't even need to be legal or have papers, or you can vote for 3 persons or whatever they want to do in little things, in little places. So once they win with all the cheating, with all the corruption, then you put in a better position to that person. So it's
like stairs.
Yes, it's like a stair. But the foundation is not because it was good people. I don't say about good. Was people legally doing? So is we say is illegit in the end.
Yeah.
Even if it's elected, it's illegit.
Yeah.
And then he can be a president, or she can be a president, but their very foundation, the very first foundation, is illegit. You got it, because we are the ones who are making growing. That person, nobody knows who was it.
Right.
And then elected by a lot of corruption and things like that. And that's we are seeing now, and that's every time it's biggest, and every time it's more normal.
Right.
And we start normalizing the bad things and every horrible crimes and more, and we must to stop, and that is having good people representing us or being in a ballot to vote for them. So thank you very much for this second chapter. Before we leave, do you want to say something that probably I forgot to ask you, or you want to
No, if you guys are interested in getting the book, you can go to electionblueprint.com and just click on it, and click on the link on that page, Or if you don't want to do that, you can just go directly to Amazon.com and just search for it. It's there. BarnesandNoble.com. You can walk in any Barnes and Noble or any bookstore or bookseller that you love, and you can get the book there. If they don't have it in stock, then they can order it for you.
They can order for you, and you don't have to wait all the chapters once per week to know what is about the book.
Yeah,
you can
absolutely.
do it right away.
Yep,
right.
Absolutely.
They don't have to be waiting for
That's right.
all the things. So thank you very much, Christopher. It's nice to have you here again, and see
Nice
you
to be
next
here.
week.
Absolutely. See you next week. Sounds good.
Let me do this first before we leave. As I always said in Spanish, whatever you desire for me, I desire for you 1,000 times. That is something very mine, and that is something that I always use. And even if it's in English, I want to keep it because I love it.
Great.
Bye-bye, everybody.